Please announce yourself.
Terry and Tiffany from Cult Radio A Go-Go.
Yeah, hi Tiffany, it's Irene. How are you?
Hi Irene, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well on a Saturday night.
Good. Let me do the official introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, we are very excited to welcome our first guest for this evening. She is an Academy Award winner, a singer, a songwriter, a dancer, and an actress, and we are thrilled to have her join us, the one and only Irene Cara. You're on the air live with Terry and Tiffany. Welcome to the show, Irene.
Hi, Terry. I didn't get to meet you before, but I'm saying hi now. I know Tiffany.
Well,
so hope you guys are having a good Saturday night.
We are.
Let me tell you, Irene, I've been doing radio since the 70s, and I can die now because I've got Irene Cara on the phone. I am such a fan. You are. The first thing my daughter's...
Don't do that.
Right.
You're going to live forever, remember?
Right.
I think that's a song I recognize from the 80s. It's only like a song that if anybody ever plays any music from the 80s, it's like the #1 anthem of the 80s.
It's a good one, I must admit. Too bad I didn't write that one.
Right.
So you live on the East Coast now. We were talking about how late it is there. You actually live in Florida, right?
Yeah, I live here in Tampa Bay. I've been here quite a while now. This is my mother's hometown, you know, my mother and that side of the family, all of my aunts and my cousins, my sister's here, and her kids and her grandchildren. So when I left Europe, instead of going back to, you know, California or even New York, I left New York in my 20s, I came home to Mommy and to, you know, take care of her and be close to my family. So she passed away about 2 years ago, and so I'm still here. And I love it here. I love the beaches, you know, I love the weather.
Right.
I love being very close to, you know, Cancun and all of the beautiful places I love to hop around to
Well,
in Latin America.
The thing about Florida is you're kind of right at home because there's kind of a Latin American beat there because you're part Cuban, right?
Yeah, on my mother's family, on my mother's side, yeah.
Fantastic.
So all of my Cuban American relatives, we're all from, you know, we're like five generation Floridian Cubans, like most Irish Americans.
Well, it must kind of be living in Florida and you know, kind of going back to where, you know, your mom was from. It must kind of be old stomping ground territory because, you know, a lot of people say, oh, well, they got in the business when they were a teenager or early 20s, but you actually technically started entertaining and performing and everything at a very young age. Even at the age of 3, you were one of 5 top finalists for the Little Miss America pageant, right?
That's right. Mom and I used to take the bus all the way to Palisades. I lived in the Bronx then, and we used to travel to the park, you know, the Palisades Park, and do the pageant. I mean, I wasn't as young as 3. I mean, it was more like 5.
Okay.
And, I mean, I kept doing it till I became a finalist. So between the ages of 5 and 9 or something, I was every year at the Little Miss America pageant, mainly to perform. I mean, you know, there were so many pretty little girls there. You know, I didn't expect to win on beauty, but you know, it was a good platform for me to perform in front of, you know, huge audiences and family audiences and get a feel for performing at that age. But I did finally end up being a finalist.
Yay!
So.
Well, you know, the other host, which is Tiffany, which is your good old friend that you've been talking to all this time, we watched Fame again, and the first thing she said to me is, how is that big voice coming out of that little girl? And the thing is we just got done listening to a track from something we got off of YouTube. You were singing at 8 years old, and my God, at 8, the range you had.
Yeah, I started, and it was in Spanish, right? I started in the Spanish field. My dad came to the States from Puerto Rico in the 50s. He came with a mambo band, and they had a #1 hit on the Latin chart. And he was the lead saxophonist in a big, merengue band. Brought a lot of that great music that people dance to now on Dancing with the Stars. Mm-hmm. But my dad was a pioneer in what would later become salsa music and great Latin music. But he came here in the 50s with his band and a hit record, and met my mom at the Broadway Casino in New York, which was a big dance club there, where all of the groovy kids from that era would go and dance,
Right.
And my mom would sit and watch him play and flirt, and that's how I came around to be. So I was born in New York, and the rest is on my bio.
And it's all history. I've got to let you know that we watched, I guess it was called a reality series. It was kind of before a reality series, which was called Hit Me Baby One More Time. And, we're a big fan of the 80s and late 70s. You were, in our opinion, the only one that did hit us one more time, because you sounded exactly like you did back when you did the original Flashdance song. You really had it, unlike some of the performers that was on that show. Do you remember anything about that performance that night?
Yeah, I remember we won that night. Me and my band at the time. I mainly did it to introduce the band that I'd been recording with, Hot Caramel, to the television audiences. I mean, I really didn't want to be part of a contest, but it seems that's the only way you can get on television these days, You have to, be on some kind of, contest, some kind of battle for whatever. Seems that's the only thing that gets you on television, these days. But, yeah, that was back in 2004 or 2005, I think.
Well, I know you said...
it was great fun. We had a blast. I did my old hits, and then we did the song. They wanted us to do one song from somebody else, so we did something from what's her name? I can't think of it right now. We did "I'm Out of Love." Oh God, I can't remember her name right now.
That's okay.
I'm having a senior moment. I'm sorry. Anyway. But unfortunately, we couldn't do any of our original material, which is what I really wanted.
Right. Well, here's what you do, Irene. You just pretend that you've never danced before, and you get them to put you on the next season of Dancing with the Stars.
Well, they've asked me about 20 million times. I've always turned them down.
Oh.
Why?
But because at the time when they first were becoming a prominent big hit TV show, everybody they asked to sing, the camera was never on them. It was always on the dancers.
Right.
So I was basically being asked to be a background singer to their dancers, and that's okay if I'm sitting home watching it, but I certainly didn't want to go use my time doing that. Since then they've changed up a little bit on that, and now that now that it's an established show, when they ask a recording artist to come on and sing, you actually see some of them as well as the dancers.
Yeah.
But at the time they were kind of courting me. They weren't doing that. But Flashdance is now a musical. Flashdance the musical. It's been touring the country. It's now here in Florida actually, and it's heading for Broadway. And they've hinted at me, the producers of Dancing with the Stars, that if it's a big hit, they would like me to come on and sing Flashdance with the cast. So I'll probably end up doing that eventually.
That would be awesome. I was wondering about the Flashdance thing because, we get a lot of young listeners as well as listeners that are our ages and grew up in the 70s and the 80s. And somebody had gave a comment to me when I said, we're having a great Irene Cara on the show. And they were like, oh, yeah, she did a great dance in Flashdance. Do you ever get confused with people with that? I don't know why they should be, but
thinking you're Jennifer Beals, etc.
Well, I look, all biracials look alike, I guess. They all look like me, it seems. Just different shades of me. No, it's a compliment. Jennifer's a lovely girl and a wonderful talent, and it obviously, they wanted some vibe of Fame in Flashdance, or else they wouldn't have picked Jennifer, who was a biracial actress, as the lead, and they wouldn't have asked me to do the music. So, that was what that was about, and it certainly worked. Flashdance had its own kind of vibe and brilliance, but they wanted a bit of Fame thrown in there too.
Right.
And it was smart because it worked. Both movies, I think, kind of set the tone for 80s musicals in films,
Absolutely. Well, let me ask you a little bit more about Fame and how you got involved with that, because am I correct in understanding that they had originally just cast you to be an actress and a dancer in Fame, and then when they found out that you sang so beautifully, did they not rewrite the role of Coco Hernandez?
No, they knew of me from a film I did when I was really a kid, an adolescent actually, called Sparkle, which has recently been remade. It was Whitney Houston's remake, her last film before she died. I did the original movie of that back in the 70s. So they had heard of me, and they knew that I sang. But you're right. I was originally casted just to act and be one of the main principal dancers. But when it came time to do the music, they turned to me to do the music. So to sing most of the major songs. They knew I sang from because of I had quite a resume already from childhood. I sang on Electric Company when I was a child, and I'd been on that series with Bill Cosby, and I'd done 2 other movies before Fame, and one of them was the original Sparkle, which I sang, which was another musical, which I sang throughout. So they knew I sang.
Well, we get questions from listeners, and they wondered what you would say or any comments you might have on what you might call the reboot of Sparkle that had Whitney Houston in it. What do you think of the film compared to yours?
Well, I'll tell you, I finally ended up seeing it. First of all, on Facebook and Twitter, people were just bombarding me with, have you seen it yet? Have you seen it yet? This was like the first week it opened. It hadn't even hit Florida yet, And I said, no, I haven't seen it yet. It's not here yet, And everybody kind of took my tone as, oh, you must be bitter, And saying, oh, people, just, leave me alone. I have not seen it because it's not here yet,
Right.
And I was invited to the premiere. Unfortunately, I broke my foot that year and was limping around my house, with one of those charming, fashionable boots that they put on you when you break your foot. And there was no way that I could make any premiere. But I would have loved to gone and met the new cast and all of that. But I was just, not able to fly, wasn't able to walk. So, but I did finally see it now that it's on cable television. The only critique I do like how they modernized it and all of that and moved it up 10 years, to 68 instead of in the 50s. That was fine. The only critique I had was that, I don't understand why they made it out of Detroit, made it about, a family in Detroit, especially after Dreamgirls. It kind of struck me like Sparkle meets Dreamgirls kind of thing. And I don't think that was necessary. There were a lot of great girl groups coming out of Harlem, and they could have kept the story in Harlem. That's my only critique. Everything else about it I liked a lot.
Wow.
And I thought Whitney was wonderful.
Well, you actually have an opportunity to give your comment on another remake, shall I say, you might have suffered through, because they remade Fame. I know Fame was a TV series, and we'll talk about that, but Fame was remade as a movie. I don't even want to see it after I've seen your film, okay?
That one I'm not going to be so kind to. that one I thought was, I don't know what the hell that was. I just don't know. It was another high school musical kind of film, and Fame was not a film about really, how should I put this? It wasn't an adolescent type of movie, even though it was about youngsters in school. Fame was a serious film, and about serious topics at the time. and that are still, what American Idol and America's Got Talent and, all of these shows are about to a lot of young people trying to make it in the business. And I really thought they trivialized it to a point that, was not easy to watch. And also, racially, Fame was very, very diverse racially. Those schools in New York, they're not all white schools. You know what I mean? There's quite a bit of, Hispanics and African Americans and biracials and Asians and all of that. And because the director was English, Alan Parker, I mean, he was very keen to showing that as it was. In fact, everybody you see in the movie is from those three schools. Even the principals. I was the only one, even out of the principals, I think me and Barry Miller were the only two who had not gone to the school. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Right.
I was accepted. In fact, I had auditioned right after Sparkle, but because I was working so much, I was accepted for all three departments, dance, music, and acting. I couldn't go because they have a very strict rule that they don't allow you to work while you're in school until after you graduate. And I'd had a career since childhood, so my family and I, we had to sit down and make a decision whether I was going to go to the school and stop the momentum I had built up already with my career, or just pass on the school. So we ended up saying we would just pass on the school. But it's ironic that years later, I kind of felt like doing the movie was like my chance at actually going to the school. Right. It was little kind of destiny, twist of fate there that it happened that way.
Well, let me ask you, I don't know what feedback you may or may not have gotten from Alan Parker, but the thing that was interesting about Fame that I thought was that so many movies are kind of, that are focusing on somebody trying to become a dancer or an actor or a singer. They really kind of make them a comedy, fluff, sugar and spice. And as you said, Fame was not that. It was a very serious movie. As someone myself who has gone through, acting and dancing classes, I always said I thought that was a movie that they should show in acting and dance classes to kind of give you, not only an example of great acting, but also to show you the reality of life in trying to become in the performing arts as well. So did anybody
and all the challenges that you face and all of the obstacles you face and all of that, all of the disappointments.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's one thing that a lot of the high school musicals, I'm not poo-pooing on all of them. I mean, they are what they are. A lot of them are done brilliantly and they're fun to watch. But it's not the same emotional tenure that Fame was. It's a different thing. It's more like a Glee thing where you're there to enjoy yourself and be entertained. Fame was not just about being entertained. As a film, it was much more of a dramatic piece.
Well, one of the more poignant scenes of Fame that I thought really showed your acting ability, and we've even gotten letters on it from listeners, and it wasn't like looking at it like a seedy scene. It was looking at it with the emotion that you gave, because this is what happens to a lot of young girls, especially out here in Hollywood where we are. The scene where you got enticed to do an audition for this guy and come to find out he just wanted to get you nude on camera. What was it like for you to do that scene, and how did you bring all those emotions up? And I hope to God that something like that never happened to you when you were looking for gigs.
Well, my mother would have, killed them, first of all. I had a very aggressive stage mother, God rest her soul, and she was always around, Even with Sparkle, I mean, I had 4 hours of school before they can film me, and my mother was on the set all the time, which made my love scenes with Philip Michael Thomas very difficult. But, but that happens. That happens a lot, and it still happens. So, I mean, it was rough for me. I'd never done a nude scene before, and the fact that it was shot through another camera kind of helped, the graininess of it all. And, and me being, I was a ballerina then. I was practically flat-chested. So, there wasn't much to see. But, Alan was very conscientious of making me feel comfortable. And it was a closed set and, all of that. There was only, 3 or 4 people that had to be there, shooting the scene, and that was it, and the actors.
Right.
Well, I know there was a lot of people that was disappointed because they thought Irene Cara was going to be in the TV version of Fame. Why didn't you do the role?
Well, I was pursuing a recording career, and I wanted to do other films and play other roles. I didn't want to get typecast as just Coco. And in those days, it wasn't quite as easy to move from television to films as it is now, In those days, very few people made the transition from television to film. Travolta was one, but it was very few. If you were doing television, it was very hard to be in movies in those days. And that worried me, Looking back at it now, maybe I should have, but I decided against it at the time.
Well, I do know that there was and maybe this is wrong, you read stuff on the internet, sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not. I read that there was actually supposed to be a sitcom of yours that you shot the pilot for called Irene, and they just never got picked up. Is that true?
Yeah, it is true, and the difficult thing about that was that we got one of the highest ratings for the network for that season, and they still didn't pick it up. So, c'est la vie.
Did they give you?
Well, that Keenan Wayans was the lead male actor in that. I'm sure that's one thing he likes to forget. He won't put on his resume. That's, you have your winners and your losers. But, I was a little surprised they didn't pick it up because it did get a huge rating. So, but there you go.
Now, I've got to imagine the big moment in your life. You've had a lot of big moments, but I imagine a big moment. I saw, I don't even know why I wasn't watching it that year. I saw the YouTube video of you accepting an Oscar for Flashdance. What a feeling. What was that like for you?
Well, I wanted to, be very careful to represent Giorgio because for some reason, and I don't remember why at this point, he wasn't able to make it. He's the composer, and the great composer. Did all of those great records with Donna Summer and whatever. But there was him and Phil Ramone. Phil Ramone has passed away. God bless him. Was also a sweetheart. He did a lot of music on Flashdance as well. But Giorgio really got all of the accolades, and I just couldn't understand why he would not make himself available. To go to the Oscars and possibly win an award as huge as that. So I was like kind of speaking for myself and for him. I had to kind of cover for him not being there. So I hope I did a good job.
Well, I might have heard it wrong, but I'm a little bit confused. I thought I'd heard you say earlier in the interview, because I mentioned Flashdance being such a big song and everything. I thought I'd heard you say, I wished I would have written that. You did co-write it, right?
No, I said about Fame. I did not write Fame.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's the joke, because right. I'd written Flashdance. That was you didn't get the joke, Terry.
Oh, that's
joke. When you mentioned it, I said, yeah, I wish I'd written that one because I know it's late. I know.
Yeah, it's too hard for me to get the jokes because I'm talking to the beautiful Irene Cara and I'm like starstruck right now.
So let me ask you, what was it like to work with Giorgio? I had read that you at first were possibly a little bit hesitant to work with him because you didn't want to be compared to Donna Summer. But what was it like when you did end up working with him on Flashdance? What a feeling.
Well, I try to make it as me as possible. I put, a lot of my, sense of melody as well as lyrics, and I just imprinted it into what he had done musically. At that age, I did have a similar tone to Donna, but only on certain tunes, and basically they were the kind of tunes that I did with Giorgio, because that was his style and that was her style, But I certainly, when you hear me on ballads, like on Out Here on My Own, I sound nothing like Donna.
Right.
So,
right.
It's just, a lot of it is the production, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Look, there's worse people to be compared to. I mean, she was, first of all, Donna was a beautiful, beautiful person.
Mm-hmm.
I've met her several times. She was sweet, funny, lovely, very warm and open. I spent time with her and her husband and her young daughter. She was a real sister, and it broke my heart when I heard she passed away.
Yes.
Well, there's one thing that you actually have in common with Donna Summer, and it's not that you sing the same or anything. I was telling my daughter here, she was so surprised to hear it, that Donna Summer did a country album, and you didn't do a country album, but you did something for country music television?
Oh, for 2 minutes. Oh, that was a nightmare. Oh, my God. Yeah, I had written a song because they wanted me to go on this country reality show, and I went there really thinking that it was going to be about music, and again, I walked into the TV reality trap, and it was really about stirring up as much nonsense as possible so they can get it on film, and I just ended up leaving because it was just not the kind of television I wanted to do, and people were beating each other up that you didn't see on. I mean, really, in the middle of the night, people were starting fights, and it was just, and that was just the first, second day. I thought,
oh.
Can you imagine another 2 weeks of this? I said, no, thanks. I'm not here to be, anybody's fool. So I left, and I don't know. The show, I don't think, lasted too much longer.
Well, it was definitely the worst of two evils for you, because not only do you not like reality television, but you don't like being typecast in a certain music. That would have been terrible if people would have been, oh, she's on CMT, she must be a country star.
No, but I did write a kind of country pop tune for them that I was very excited to present to them, and just never got that far because they were more preoccupied with stirring up controversy and confrontation and that kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
So I left.
We get questions submitted to us from our listeners during the interviews, and I have a couple here that came from our audience. The first one is in regards to Sparkle, and they want to know what your thoughts were on working with the great Curtis Mayfield, who wrote the music for that film.
Oh, it was incredible. And, he was well then. I mean, this was before his tragic accident, and he was, just lovely, and the music was fabulous, and we were all very excited to, to sing this kind, because not only was it, Curtis Mayfield, but it was Curtis Mayfield doing a period piece. Sparkle, even though it came out in the mid-'70s, it takes place in the 50s. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it was the music, was that kind of soulful doo-wop of the 50s, you know?
Right.
And we loved just being transported to another time, Mm-hmm. And what Harlem was like in those days musically, and this was at a time when, the black exploitation films were all over the place. So Sparkle really stuck out because it was the first time, in a while that we'd seen an all-black cast on film that wasn't in a black exploitation film.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So it made a lot of noise because of that. Sounder was the next film after that, got a lot of attention, that it was a real movie and not a black exploitation film, and made Cicely Tyson a big star.
Well,
so, but we were before Sounder even.
Well, one that you did that really kind of fits in that category you talked about, it wasn't a black exploitation film. It was something that really brought light to a lot of people and a lot of things about the terrible way the past used to be, and that was, you were in Alex Haley's Roots. I mean, such a monumental TV film.
I wasn't in the first one. Everybody makes that mistake. You know, there was two of them.
Right.
I was in the second one. I was in the next Roots, the Next Generation, which is like the continuation of the first one. What happens to, you know, it was basically Alex Haley's actual family. I played his mother at 15. And so, yeah, that was a big deal, you know. James Earl Jones played Alex. Even Marlon Brando asked to be in the film, called the producers up, you know, to do a cameo in it. And, you know, working with Henry Fonda, Olivia de Havilland, all of these legends, it was extraordinary. And, you know, I was the young ingenue lead, you know, and if I hadn't had, you know, the 10-year or 11-year experience I'd had working as a child actress in New York and on the stage and all of that, if I hadn't had that experience, I don't think I would have been ready to carry such a huge, you know, responsibility, such a huge part in such a major television event. Mm-hmm. But I pulled it off and got great reviews, and it was a big deal in my life.
You know, it may be crazy on my part because I'm a little crazy, okay? I'm up there in age, too. but here you're mentioning Olivia de Havilland and all the great classic actors. To me, to have worked with the greatest actor in the world, Mr. T, in DC Cab, wow!
I never met him. I just did my things and left. I never met half the cast, you know? I worked with one of the actors, and that was it, you know, in a taxi cab. Everybody else, I didn't know from Adam until I saw the movie. But, you know, a lot of people love that movie. I mean, it was silly and funny and dumb, and, you know, it was kind of Animal House-ish. But people love that film, and, you know, it was funny. I just got to play myself. You know, it was like 2 days' work. But, you know, a lot of great comics were in there. You know, that ended, the Bill Maher was in it. I mean, you know.
Right.
It's amazing.
Well, and
you know, the people that came out of that film, you know.
Yeah. Another question we got from the audience, Irene, is could you please ask Irene about working with Tatum O'Neal in Certain Fury? That was a different kind of role for Irene, and we would love to hear her thoughts about it.
Yeah, that one was new for me because it was an action film. It was shot in Canada, and I'd never done an action film before, so, you know, there was a lot of bruises and scrapes and all of that, and, you know, I had to deal with, you know, being shot at and running and fighting and not my kind of thing, you know, but Tatum was great at it, boy. She loved all the fight scenes. She was great at it. She would work with the stunt women and kick their booties, boy. She just dove right into all of that action stuff. Wow. Me, I was like afraid. Oh my God, they're gonna scratch me. They're gonna hit me. They're gonna what? Don't hit my face. Don't strangle my throat. You know. I mean, yes, I was a wimp, I must say. But I met my husband. Well, the man who would end up being my husband on the set. He was the stunt coordinator, and we got married about 3 years later, and we're divorced now. But so we were very happy at the time. So at least that was something good came out of that film.
Right.
So, like, everybody's going to be asking me, are you married now?
No, I never remarried. It just, I don't know. It just never. I don't know. I don't think I ever will remarry. I'll probably do the Goldie Hawn thing, you know. If I meet, you know, the right mate, we'll just live together and be together and not, you know, make it a contract.
Well, you seem to be.
I'm that kind of spirit, Helen Mirren kind of spirit, where you kind of have a husband, but you know, it's not on paper. You know what I mean?
Well, you seem to be more of a person to me that's like more career oriented anyway. I mean, you know, you're so concentrated on what you're doing, and I think that's probably best for you.
Oh, I think every artist is married to their art first,
exactly.
You know, male or female. But you know, I'm very family oriented. You know, I've taken care of my mom, my godmother, you know, my sister, her kids. You know, I do a lot here in Florida from my family. I'm everybody's aunt, you know. I'm the aunt in the family, and it carries, you know, a good deal of responsibility, especially now that my mom's gone. I'm kind of like the matriarch now of the family.
Well, we want to get on to what you're doing now, but I got to mention a few other things here. Being a family type person, I imagine that you sat around and with your family you watched The Wizard of Oz, and you said to yourself, I'm going to play Dorothy someday, and you did in The Wiz in a Broadway production.
Yes, that was terrific. That was terrific, and it was great doing that music as well, because by the time I got around to playing it, you know, it had become iconic. The movie was out. The original musical stage production was a smash hit. So, you know, that was another challenge to kind of put myself into such an iconic kind of role and make it my own. And that was a big challenge. I loved it. I loved doing it. I loved the audiences. We had a great cast. One or two of them were from the actual original stage production. And, you know, we did well.
Well, the thing that I love, you know, we've been trying to find a track from it, and the person that was trying to find the tracks from me told me he didn't think that this particular cast recorded it. I've been trying to find you singing I Don't Know How to Love Him, because you were in a Broadway adaptation of Jesus Christ Superstar. It was kind of a revival of Jesus Christ Superstar, right?
Yeah. They wanted to do an album of our production of it. It was a great production of it. The original Judas and Jesus from the movie was in this production, and they wanted to do a soundtrack of it, but they never got around to it. So I don't know why. I could maybe money or whatever, but we were smoking. It was a great cast, and it was a great production of it.
Wow. And gotta be, Irene, has got to be the most obscure thing you've done. You were the voice of Snow White.
Yes. Yes. This is not Disney Snow White. No. This was a almost like a feminist version of Snow White. You know, it was Snow White and the Dwarfettes. Instead of it being male dwarfs, they were dwarfettes. They were female dwarfs. Wow. But you know, it was great. You know, Phyllis Diller and Dom DeLuise and Ed Asner were the voices. You know, so I was in good company with that as well. But I think Disney had a fit when it came out. I don't know.
Well, you know, one thing I know about you, and I don't know if you want to comment on it. If you want to, that's great. If you don't want to, that's fine. We've had serious issues with record labels throughout the years. I know a lot of times they rip artists off. And we've always supported people like Prince, who became the symbol instead of Prince because he had fights ongoing with Warner Brothers all the time. You had a situation where you actually won a lawsuit against your record label over unpaid royalties, and you won. Yeah,
it cost me a lot, you know, because, I mean, unlike Prince, you know, at least he got his money, you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, I had to really fight to get mine, and I still didn't get the judgment I was awarded in court. But I did get, you know, the ability to get my future royalties, you know, which I live off of now. So at least, you know, I wasn't stripped of making a living from my work, which is what would have happened if I had lost, you know?
Right.
So, right. You got to look at the upside. But it, you know, it stalled my record career, and it really kept other labels from signing me. And, you know, now I'm an indie artist, which is the way to go anyway these days. But, it really robbed me of my future record career, you know, in a big way. If it wasn't for Europe, you know, I would have probably not recorded again. But I went to Europe, and I did you know, quite a few records there that were very big over there, and I'm still recording, and you know, people can buy my stuff off my website, like most artists now, and the record companies are, you know, still robbing people and still abusing people and still ripping people off, and you know, still paying for hits. You know, the payola still goes on. It's like, you know, but they're a dinosaur. They're a dying breed, thank goodness. And the artist now is in the position, because of new media, to have a lot more control of their work, and that's a good thing.
Right, definitely. Well, in talking about being an indie artist and stuff, you are actually, and if everybody wants to check this out, you can go to Irene's website at irenecara.com. You have a recent, as of 2011, album called Irene Cara Presents Hot Caramel. Can you tell us a little bit about Hot Caramel, the band?
Well, the band really is, we really were a session band. I mean, we spent almost 8 years in the studio because it wasn't just one CD, it was two. It's a double CD set. It's a lot of music. It's 2 albums in one. And, you know, a lot of it was created in the studio, and I took my time, and, you know, it started with one group of girls and then ended up with another group of girls. And, you know, I wanted to make a statement, that women in music can be, you know, alluring and beautiful and enticing and sexual and all of that, but also be about real music. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to put together a group of women that could play as well as sing and write and produce and all of that. And, you know, I found the right group of gals to do that on this album, and it's something I'm very proud of. I know it's difficult to sell these days because, you know, a lot of people don't really buy CDs as albums anymore. They want to download tracks. But you really need to, with something like this, you know, spend the money, and I made it as cheap as possible, and buy the whole piece, because it is kind of like a concept record. You know, there's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end. And there are different moods of music that move along as you listen to both CDs. Mm-hmm. You know, it moves from more pop, more R&B kind of commercialized sounding stuff, to very, very eclectic jazzy stuff, acid jazz, tracks that were recorded live, you know, with spoken word. It gets very poetic and beautiful ballads, and it gets very mature by the time you're listening to the second CD. So I do hope that audiences out there, you know, will be patient enough to, you know, try and get into a project like this as a whole piece and not just download this and that, you know?
Right. I also wanted to ask you, I had read that actually on your website that back in 2003 you had written an excerpt of kind of your story for an upcoming book. It ended up being in the book The 16th Minute, and people can get, fans of yours can get a download of your unedited excerpt off of your website for I think it's like $1.99. But in knowing that, have you considered just writing your entire autobiography?
I do want to do it eventually, but now's not the time. I think late in my later years, definitely. But, you know, I'm still young, pretty mm-hmm. much. And even though, you know, I don't stay out till 2 or 3 in the morning like I used to. But right about 10, 11, you know, I'm ready to crash. But other than that, you know, I think I have another 10 or 15, maybe 17 years to go before I do that, you know?
Absolutely. Well, before we wrap things up, I just wanted to mention again, I thought I had read, and you can shed some light in this, am I correct in knowing that you're going on or getting ready to go on tour soon?
Yes, we're working on that right now. We also have some offers from Germany and France, and we're getting ready to do a gig in New York in the spring of 2014. So yeah, I'm busy right now putting together the live show, you know, which is gonna, you know, is a challenge because, you know, like I said, the music is very deep. It's not, you know, it's not fluffy kid stuff. It's not stuff that, you know, it's 50 dancers singing to tracks. Mm-hmm. A lot of it is, you know, live instruments and arrangements, and, you know, there's a lot of strings and horns and stuff that, you know, we're programming now. It's, you know, it goes, it's useful and all of that, but it's real music, you know, it's intricate music. It's not simple. None of it is simple that you can just put together with beats. You know what I mean?
Right.
So in that sense, it's old school in terms of really being lush, you know. And to make that jump off live takes a lot of work, you know. And we're not going to have 50 million dancers, you know.
Right.
It's just going to be the band and the performances and the exchange of you know what's going on stage, the performances and the audience and all of that. You know, like it used to be. You know,
Yeah.
Go to a show. You know, you'd see a band and you get involved in what was actually happening on the stage and not just the smoke and mirrors. You know.
Exactly.
Well, I think corporate America should step up to the plate, because having been somebody that was on the electric company, I think Jello Pudding, because of Bill Cosby, should come forward and sponsor your tour.
Well, thanks very much, Jerry. I'll send them a twist on that and see if they respond. The Jello Corporation.
All right. Well,
or Hershey's might actually be more apropos.
well, I want to thank you so much for joining us on the air, Irene. I know that it's late over there, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. And I encourage all of our listeners to check out Irene's website. Just head over to irenecara.com and keep in touch, Irene. Anytime you ever have anything you want to promote, you have my cell phone number. We are at your disposal.
Oh, you guys are so sweet. Thanks, Tiffany. Thanks, Jerry. Thanks so much for having me. And thanks to all your listeners.
Absolutely.
You know, I've got to ask you one more thing. I know I got to let you go, but I've got to ask you this, because I'll hate myself if I don't. It's going to embarrass my daughter.
Oh, gosh.
Tonight is my daughter's birthday. She's turning 30 years, or she's turned 30 years old. You are her favorite singer in the entire world. Can you sing happy birthday to her, just one line?
What's her name?
Tiffany.
Oh, let's see. What can I rhyme with Tiffany? Oh, Tiffany, it's an epiphany. It's your birthday, girl. Have a good time, girl. Tiffany, you're an epiphany. All I can think of is Epiphany and Tiffany.
Well, that's
you gotta help
fantastic.
me up here, Jerry.
No.
I'll be on this all night now, trying to write her a song.
Well, you're definitely a creative artist, because rather than going for the old traditional, you made up your own, and I like that.
I'm trying here. Tiffany, have a good one, and, you're more precious than anything Tiffany can produce. How's that?
Thank you so much, Irene.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Take care. Be well.
You too. Have a wonderful weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.